Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamualaikum. Ji ayanu pakhair agale ni hao chunishumme washmale. Ohaya Gonzalez, guten Morgen, hola, boyo, privyet, kaifa hal? Hale shuma chatore, ahlan wa sahlan, marhaba. Buna mucho gracias, swabi ab malli kare aaya. Hoş geldin and I say Khuyamora Chivato Chihajo Kalimera Khairutan, and a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning on a very rainy morning away in Islamabad. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really lucky that I've been joined by my wonderful colleague who happens to be Miss Eesha Rehan. I happen to be Shahzad Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Eesha, assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Wa alaikum assalam, Shahzad. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and I am feeling absolutely great because today we were woken up with such blissful and peaceful rain, and it welcomed us with such tranquility, which is why we are expected to see how the monsoon is going to be affecting Pakistan. And let's dive into how the widespread monsoon spell has begun across the country in various parts. The Met Office has warned of potential flash floods, urban flooding and landslides and other rain-related hazards. Heavy rains could trigger flash floods in local streams and nalas and cause urban flooding in low-lying areas of Islamabad, Lahore, Rawalpindi and Gujranwala, and windstorms and lightning storms are also expected. And to talk more about this and shed some light more about how to handle this flash flooding, we are joined by Dr. ZAHEER, who is the Chief Meteorologist of Pakistan's Meteorological Department, and he is here to guide us about how to survive this monsoon season. So, assalamu alaikum, doctor. How are you feeling today?
Thank you very much. I'm good. How about you?
All right. I think, we cannot hear Dr. ZAHEER as of now as well. But Dr. Sahab, assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you feeling today?
Wa alaikum assalam, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Zaid, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. And, just wanted to know whether what's in for Pakistan in terms of pre-monsoon or monsoon rains.
Actually, the monsoon rainfalls have started in most parts of the country, particularly in the upper parts of the country. Rawalpindi, Islamabad has been experiencing rainfall since morning. Since also Kashmir, parts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and central parts are experiencing rainfall. First spell of monsoon rainfalls of 2025. So monsoon rainfalls most in most of the parts of the country continue till July and August, till mid-September, and after mid-September these monsoon winds all started to retrieve, and the peak monsoon rainfalls cease to exist in the month of September, by the end of September. So now we are experiencing or entering into the monsoon season of this year.
All right, sir, thank you so much, for giving us an update on that as well. But, sir, very quickly, do you think that, we really, or probably NDMA or all of those other agencies who are out there really need to be prepared in terms of urban flooding?
Of course, because monsoon rainfalls, they have erratic patterns. So, in short interval of time, we can have very heavy downpours in the urban cities, particularly Rawalpindi, Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi. So in the monsoon seasons, not only we have the recharge of the water reservoirs, but there are some hazards which are also associated with monsoon season. They are urban flooding, flash flooding, and riverine flooding, etc. So for the past few years, we are experiencing that the erratic pattern has increased, and the heavy downpour in small interval of times has increased. So we should be prepared for the short spell of heavy rainfalls in the big cities of Pakistan.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Eesha, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you, and thank you so much for giving us updates about how the weather is going to be in days to come as well. And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you stay prepared. And not just that, I think for everybody who intends to travel, because it's summer vacation time, for all of our children who are actually school going, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you take all precaution measures as well while traveling. But these are the updates for weather, but I would want to connect the climate change or the global effect that climate change is actually having, because imagine that USA is actually going to swelter under first heat wave. And it's very rare to see that as well, because large swaths of the US are sweltering under an extreme heat wave, with some cities recording temperatures of 100 degrees Fahrenheit. As many as 40 cities have broken records for high temperatures, the National Weather Service said, adding that dozens more will be breaking records of their own when the heat dome hits its peak. The current heat wave is particularly threatening because it is hitting cities like Boston, New York and Philadelphia very early in the summer. What is making the weather worse is the lack of cooling at night, which is driven by humidity. The government's heat health website showed that the highest level of heat risk is swaths from Chicago to Pittsburgh and North Carolina to New York. Well, that's how climate change and global warming is having its impact as well, and has always
not
been
just this,
Donald Trump at the forefront of saying that we really need to industrialize United States of America. Well, these are the effects that you will witness.
And not just this, not just in the westerly world, how global warming is impacting us, also in Asia, extensive flooding in China's Guangzhou and Guangxi provinces, where hundreds were evacuated by emergency personnel. Vulnerable communities were told to seek refuge on higher ground as multiple rivers burst their banks after days of rain in China's flood-hit provinces. At least 2 riverside cities, each with populations of over 300,000, today were told to evacuate and flee. So the effects of global warming are very prevalent and devastating, which is why we need to make sure that we give back to the environment and protect it at any
And obviously
cost.
collective efforts certainly needs to be taken as well. But now coming down towards where, ladies and gentlemen, the entire world was focused on the 12-day long war, the conflict which was going on in between Iran and Israel. And it's really necessary to update our audiences about what has actually happened in recent times. And to speak about it, obviously a ceasefire between Iran and Israel officially begun following weeks of escalating military confrontations that threatened to plunge the Middle East into a wider war. And to speak about it, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by a gentleman over here who happens to be an expert on this. He happens to be Brigadier Retired Masood Ahmad Khan Sahib. He's a senior analyst. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Good morning. How are you feeling today?
Sorry, Assalamu alaikum.
Sir, please go ahead.
I think there's some introduction. The problem is that I'm not the brigadier.
All right, sir, I'm going to come back to this as well, but thank you so much. But while we're talking about it, I think what we really need to kind of share over here with our audiences, ladies and gentlemen, is that imagine that there's a tweet which has actually come out by Donald Trump, who actually stated in his tweet that fake news, CNN together with the failing New York Times have teamed up in an attempt to demean one of the most successful military strikes in history. The nuclear sites in Iran are completely destroyed. Both the Times and CNN are getting slammed by the public. Now, I think what we're talking about over here is that, you know, when we speak about the ceasefire, the announcement came just hours after Iran launched a missile strike on the U.S. Al-Udeid air base in Qatar. U.S. President Donald Trump declared the ceasefire on social media, stating that both Iran and Israel had agreed to halt hostilities. Trump wrote, "Congratulations to all, the war is officially coming to an end," adding that the ceasefire would take effect 6 hours from the announcement, with both sides expected to cease military operations. President Trump said that the Iranian missile attack was in retaliation for earlier U.S. airstrikes over the weekend targeting Iranian nuclear sites. Trump personally phoned Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to mediate the agreement. He said this could have been a war lasting years and destroying the entire Middle East, but that will not happen, and praised both nations for choosing diplomacy over prolonged conflict. I think I would want to kind of connect over here with the cessation of wars. Iran's National Security Council agrees to ceasefire with Israel. Iran's National Security Council has agreed to a ceasefire with Israel. The council issues a statement on the national decision to impose the cessation of war on the Zionist enemy and its vile supporters. Earlier, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said that there is no formal agreement on a ceasefire with Israel, despite recent claims by the United States that the truce has been reached. He added that Iran's military were in response to Israeli aggression, Israeli aggression, not a war initiated by Tehran. Araghchi said if the Israeli regime stops its illegal aggression against the Iranian people, we have no intention to continue our response afterwards. And to speak about it, we're very lucky that we've been joined by Commodore retired Dr. BILAL HAIDER Saab. Hello sir, assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you feeling today?
Good morning. Alhamdulillah, enjoying the good weather of Islamabad, as you mentioned earlier.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. You know, I'll come back to this as well. We have another guest as well who's joining us on Zoom, ladies and gentlemen. He is Brigadier Retired Masood Ahmad Khan Sahib. He's a senior analyst. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum salam. Excellent, and it's a pleasure to be part of your show.
Sir, I think I'm really sorry, just because of a technical difficulty, I'll have to head out towards a short break, and I'll come back to you, sir, with a lot of questions which I need to ask about Iran and Israel conflict and the ceasefire which has taken place. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you after a small break, and it's because of the technical difficulties that we're facing in the studios. That's the beauty of the live shows. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good morning. Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Looks like as if we've resolved our issues as well, and to kind of speak about the ceasefire in between Iran and Israel, we're very lucky that we've been joined by Brigadier Retired MASUD Ahmed Khan, sir, happens to be a senior analyst. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear us? Brigadier sir, thank you so much for taking our time and for joining us. It's wonderful to have you. And certainly, sir, to get started, I think first of all, I would want you to kind of shed some light on the ceasefire. Even though that it was very narrowly held, but alhamdulillah now to see that the ceasefire is there and the 12-day long war is actually concluded, I would want to ask you, where Donald Trump, the President of the United States, have said that we do not want a regime change in Iran.
Exactly after 12 days, Americans, they have been instrumental to Qatari officials, and they have concluded this ceasefire between the Israelis and Iranian governments. But important, as you said, of the so-called concept of regime change, earlier there was indications, and it was one of the political objectives of Israel to ensure the regime change in Iran, but they have failed. But both the Americans as well as the Israelis, they failed to change the government in Iran. To regime change in any country, there is a requirement of the ground realities, the situation in the ground, the protests, violence, a sort of a civil war, insurgency. Then you can, and mainly then you're required to have your troops on ground, so boots on ground. So that was not possible. So we can say this was one of the political objectives which the Israelis, they were trying to achieve. That was failed. And secondly, also, when we talk of military objectives, they also failed to achieve the military objective by the Israelis. They were all out to destroy and damage the nuclear installation. So only they succeeded when the Americans, they were dragged in, and subsequently the Americans, they carried out the strikes on Isfahan, Fordo, and Nissan. And now they are claiming that they have destroyed, obliterated, but the Western media, even the American think tank, they say these installations, they have been damaged partially. But whatever is the case, there is a ceasefire, although it is fragile.
Exactly. And sir, in addition to this, I think there's one more thing which I would want to ask, and certainly it will dictate our geopolitical position as well. Now, imagine, why is it that after Iran retaliating in such a befitting manner, unfortunate for it to kind of attack the bases in Qatar or the other US bases as well, and where Mr. Donald Trump actually stated that they've gotten it out of the system, why is it that now they are there to say that we do not want a regime change? Why couldn't they, realize it earlier?
Exactly, because initially they thought that it was possible. This was the two objectives: there's the destruction of military, the nuclear sites, and degrading the missile capabilities. At the same time, then the political regime change, as we saw the launching of Shah LV-2, and he was all set to return to Iran. But the developments in Iran we saw, and the way the Iranian nation, they were united, and they rallied behind the Ayatollah. And despite the fact, they tried to, the forces, the enemies, they tried to infiltrate into the Kurds, almost probably there are 10 million plus. And then they tried to also persuade the Arabs living in Ahwaz area, but there was nothing, no protest, nothing was there. So, and at the same time, the so-called invincibility, the superiority and that myth has been shattered of Israel by the Iranis. Most importantly, the first strike the strike which was carried out by the Israelis, that was very effective. 200 plus aircraft attacking Iran, then assassinating all the top military leadership, whether they belong to Pasad Iran, the army leadership, including the nuclear scientists. So there's a serious setback. But credit to the Iranian government, the nation, they basically they absorbed the shock, regrouped, and they retaliated the attacks. And there was a point of time, and according to Western media, Israelis, they were, with every passing day, they were becoming a defenseless state. There was no more interceptors available to them. So the Israelis, they were under pressure. And look, the total length of the state of Israel is 472 kilometers, and the nearest point was 15 kilometers. So they were under heavy pressure. So
Exactly, and sir, obviously, I think obviously, Pakistan has welcomed the ceasefire. Maybe the countries around the region, they welcome the ceasefire. But there's one more aspect to it, and that is that it's not completely over. I'm going to mention the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, who said that we will act with some determination if Iran tries to rebuild its nuclear program. And I'm saying this because of the fact that several media outlets reported that Trump's strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities did not destroy the sites and only set back Iran's nuclear program by months. And certainly, obviously, we do see how Iran will come back to this as well, where they want to build a nuclear facility for themselves as well and kind of have that safety for their own well-being. How do you see that? Do you think that the fear is completely over of war? Because for now, Israelis and even Iranian nationals are actually celebrating out on the street saying that we won the war. But it's not completely over.
exactly as the Israeli Chief of Army Staff said, a phase of war has ended and yet another phase yet to start. Like Modi Saab said that there is a pause in the Operation Syndrome. So they are basically on the similar line. But as far as the strikes on nuclear sites are concerned, whether it was Fordo or Natanz or Isfahan, no, the Western press writer, they say it was damage was there, but on the upper surface. The Fordo, which is half a mile under the ground, it is said the centrifuges, they are still intact. And prior to the impact, the Iranian officials, they relocated the 400 kgs of uranium, and according to reports, there were 18-wheeler trucks were seen moving from Fordo to unknown locations. So they have relocated their enriched uranium, and still there is a possibility, according to the media, they have the capability. In a couple of months, they can do it again. And as I said, they have, as International Atomic Energy Agency, in the last meeting, they said they have discovered a couple of two new sites where they are trying to enrich uranium. So they have the capability, they have the potential, but now it depends on the table what they are going to discuss. The demands are going to be that Iran has to dismantle the remaining whatever has been left, the enrichment uranium, and they will not be allowed to even to use for the civilian purposes. So that is the problem.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Brigadier Saab. Thank you so much, Brigadier Saab. Point well taken as well and well noted. Thank you so much for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. And certainly, just like Pakistan, all the other neighboring countries of Iran have actually welcomed a ceasefire. The world is actually welcoming the ceasefire as well. And sanity must prevail. Peace must prevail, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm glad that finally, just because of the befitting response that Iran has given to Israel and United States of America, that they have thought about it, that, hey, you know what? We do not want a regime change. And why do you even want a regime change? I think it's for the Iranian people to decide whether they want a regime change or not. But I think everybody needs to welcome such a ceasefire. But there have been implications and complications of, such conflicts within the region. Now, imagine that we've been speaking about it, Eesha, for the past couple of days. It has taken us 12 days you know, where we did realize how the oil prices went up. You brought up this point as well, where we have seen how, you know, such
Property
geopolitical
goes,
situations can actually be an economic challenge for the
Trigger,
countries. We have seen
exactly.
how our stock exchange actually plummeted nosedive as well, but as soon as the ceasefire news came in, the stock exchange went up again. So to speak about it, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined by the correspondent, PT Wall, to speak about the PSX surge over 6,000 points, which was just yesterday. Today, it's going down again as well. So Mr. ZAMEER, Assalamu Alaikum. How are you doing today?
Walaikum assalam. I'm great. How about you?
Absolutely perfect. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. So what is the latest from Pakistan Stock Exchange, sir? Let's get started with that.
Yeah, as we all know that peace always promote trade and business, and this is the reason that after the announcement of ceasefire, we have seen a massive surge in PSX yesterday, crossing 6,000 points in a day. And due to this 5% increase, the market has to be halted for an hour, because it's a tradition whenever market goes upwards and crosses 5% of its actual size. So it's customary to halt the trading for an hour. So this happens with the market if it goes down as well. But as you know, that this is the second time the market has been halted. The first time when Pakistan received a $3 billion tranche under the Prime Ministership of Mohammad Shahbaz Sharif's first tenure, then market jumped to more than 2,200 points at that moment, and the market was halted for the first time. So it's again a good sign for the market to go. Even today, we have seen a rise of 800 points so far in the market, and market is going smoothly well. We knew that before the conflict start of Iran and Israel, the market was around 126,000 mark, but due to that unprecedented attack from Israel to Iran, and that has disturbed not only
Thank you so much for guiding us about how this stability will be achieved in Pakistan, and not just short-term optimism will be lived. and you know, talking more about what is happening in the world, we can dive into how PIA has resumed its flights.
Exactly. So Pakistan International Airlines has resumed its flight operations to Gulf countries following a temporary disruption caused by a tense security situation and airspace closure. We all know about that as well. The national flag carrier confirmed that several flights faced significant delays but have now departed, signaling a return to normal operations. And obviously, you know, for all of those are sports people, you know, they will be able to travel again as well, and wherever they are in the rest of the world, ladies and gentlemen, they're making Pakistan proud, because imagine that the second Asian Double Squash Championship, Pakistan has qualified for the semi-finals of second Asian Double Squash Championship in Malaysia. In a hard-fought quarter-final, Pakistan defeated Korea by 2-1. Pakistan won the match with the scoreline of 11-3, 5-11 and 11-4. The quarter-final match lasted 37 minutes. Pakistan will now face host Malaysia in the semi-final today.
And not just this, good news for Pakistan, as Pakistan clinched the silver medal in the Asian Men Volleyball Nations Cup 2025 in the final. Host Bahrain beat Pakistan 3-1 to secure the gold medal. Pakistan's victory got in the first set by 25-23 after losing first set by Bahrain, which came back and got the victory in the second set by 25-16. They won the third set by 25-17 and the fourth set by 25-18 to secure the gold medal.
Exactly, and very quickly moving on to FIFA Club World Cup 2025. We've been talking about it. I think we have been mentioning about it right from where how Pakistani-made football is being used in the FIFA Club World Cup 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, Spanish club Atletico Madrid's journey in the FIFA Club World Cup has come to an end, while French giants Paris Saint-Germain have secured their spot in the knockout rounds. In a Group B clash held in California, Atletico Madrid edged past Brazilian side Botafogo with a narrow 1-0 victory. In the match's only and decisive goal came late as Antoine Griezmann found the back of the net in the 87th minute. However, despite the win, Atletico Madrid fell short of qualification. The Spanish club needed to win by at least a 3-goal margin to progress to the next stage, and their slim victory wasn't enough to keep their tournament hopes alive. Well, that's it for football now.
That's great to hear. And you know, today I think we need to recognize how we need to recognize the heroes that don't wear capes but are very active in global trade.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
They're very active in global trades, and they actually help us get all the goodies that we order online, whether it be our packages, our food,
or
our
cars.
accessories, any wooden accessories. So they work tirelessly, and these are the seafarers who are responsible for 90% of the global trade. And you know, however, there is a lot of, it's very alarming how bullying and harassment is very prevalent on sea, which is why this year's theme is My Harassment Free Ship, which is calling for more safer and respectful work. And to talk more about this, we have Commodore Dr. BILAL HAIDER, who is going to guide us about how seafarers' life can be made more easier.
And he's the Vice President NIMA, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you feeling today?
Good morning. Thank you very much for calling. And today is luckily the Seafarers Day. And thank you very much for raising this issue at the national level.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here. I do know about how bad seasickness can be, but that's a very different scenario now. Obviously, all the seafarers have to go through it. So 90% of the global trade actually takes place from water routes or sea routes as well. Now imagine that today we're talking about my harassment-free ship. First of all, what is the significance or importance of this day, and how do you think that we can achieve a ship where there's no harassment?
Basically, this day was instituted by United Nations somewhere in 2010. And just to acknowledge the great heroic contribution of these seafarers who are the silent workers. They basically, they make sure your life is running nowadays. 90% of the global trade, they are handling the trade. Even during the tough times of wars or even COVID times, they were operating. And they were equally exposed to these risks, but they continue to operate. But they make sure, like in Pakistan depends upon about 91% of the maritime trade. And we are thankful, because if those ships are not bringing the energy, oil, gas, coal, food items, or taking our exports to the rest of the world, these people are the real heroes, which are not being recognized at any level.
Exactly. And sir, not just that. I think what we really need to talk about is the environment that they work in. Now imagine that I do know for a fact, because one of my wonderful colleague, not just colleague, a family relative, happens to be a captain at a ship, and he would go away for 6 months.
Yes.
And eventually he decided after 10 years of laborious work that, hey, you know what, I'm going to retire now. What is the working environment usually for seafarers while they're in the sea?
Just imagine a very small place, maybe the bigger ships, there are different size of ships, but all sea-going ships are still a constrained place. And there are only 25 to 30 people living on that ship for extended period, minimum 3 to 4 months to maybe a year. And they are living in and they are running a ship in the 3-watch system. That is 4 hours on the duty and 8 hours break, and then again 4 hours duty. And this is a cycle of 8-9 months they are operating. They are away from their home shores, they are away from their families. Sometimes they are disconnected from their families, because if their telephone or the satellite phone is not working, so they are already disconnected. So, and they have to have the frozen food or the refrigerated food items. So look at this actual environment. They are dependent on those 25, 20, 30 people, companions, and if they have them, they are exposed to harassment by the owner of the ship or the state control or the port control ships where they are visiting. Look, they are under a lot of stress. Unfortunately, with the third world countries or the poor countries, sometimes they supply these seafarers to the rich country or others. But and the third world countries or the poor countries cannot guarantee or protect the rights of their people working on those ships. So they are exposed. If their payments are delayed, they are not giving the standard food items, their living conditions are not good, and mind it, they are in the unnatural environment. The sea is always rough. You will always have some feeling of mental disturbance. Something is going on. And every day, once we are at sea, we say that every moment at sea is a new. You cannot have a replica, you cannot translate yourself, you cannot be sure that this will, I am accustomed to this. So once you are at sea, new environment, new settings, and under mental stress, physical and mental stress.
Yes, which is why, sir, I think today we really need to ask this very important question, and that is that obviously you're representing NIMA, Institute of Maritime Affairs. What does NIMA suggest? What needs to be done for seafarers?
Basically, we have been taking up the issue with the government of Pakistan, and thankfully the government is also listening to us. First of all, we are having about 10,000 people who are connected to this industry in Pakistan, out of which 4,000 to 5,000 are on job and remaining are jobless. But if we want to keep this 5,000 or 10,000 people in job, we need to give them the currency. We need to keep their health standards. We need to make sure they are recruited through a reliable recruiting agencies, and then they have some international certifications they are required to do after regular intervals. Now it is a 5-year interval. They have to undergo some safety regulations under this STCW requirements. But if the government of Pakistan needs to make sure all this, the best thing is probably, if I can recommend to the government, is you need to create some sort of authority or policy, launch a formal policy on this subject, that seafarers protection policy, a seafarers management policy, have one single window operated organization who recruits them, although this is being done to some extent in Pakistan, but still there is a lot of
this was explained really well by you. And approximately 1.5 million men and women work at sea as seafarers, and as you mentioned, sometimes they're discriminated against the captains of the ship.
Yes.
So do you suggest that we announce mandated workshops for these captains in order to get the laborers on the ships?
Unfortunately, Pakistan is not a seafaring nation. This is we have a sea blindness. We just have 12 ships. So only 12 captains are required. So we cannot provide jobs to our seafarers. Unfortunately, at the same time, we are producing seafarers. We have Marine Academy in Karachi, and there are some private institutions who are also producing the seafarers. But until and unless government arrange or provide some mechanism and oversee, government is not supposed to do the business. It has to create an environment so that they are protected and they get the proper jobs and they are recruited through, and state to state relations, you need to talk to the seafaring nations, those who have number of ships, 2,000, 5,000 ships, 10,000 ships, that we can provide you this. Just I will give you the example, the Philippines, they are earning about $7 billion a year through 550,000 of their seafarers. Number two, maybe the Indonesia or India or the China and the Russia, they are all earning lot of, and these are all technical people. So, and this is a very good industry. We are already exporting the human resource. So this is also one form of the human resource which one could share.
And I've always spoken about it as well, that Pakistan happens to be rich in human resource, and we really need to make sure that we train them and we export them to other countries and bring back a lot of dollars. That's what Pakistan requires. But sir, alhamdulillah, your name starts with Commodore retired Dr. BILAL HAIDER. Obviously the government's going to listen to you, but thank you so much.
At present, I am representing my seafarer community. I have been a seafarer.
An honorable thing, a very
Thank you so much for joining us. And the sole purpose of me saying this was that that we hope that in near future we introduce such policies where the seafarers are being looked after. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Very kind of you for joining us.
Thank you very
Wonderful
much
to have you over here. And just very quickly, I think I have 3 submissions or suggestions to give over here. One is which you mentioned, that seafarers needs to share their own stories. Number 1, shipping companies need to strengthen policies and onboard training. And number 3, maritime organizations support and advocate seafarers' rights as well.
That was explained really well. And talking on a lighter note, I actually had a family member who was in the Navy, and what he wanted was that there to be cats on the ship because there were so many rats on the ship. So they always used to, call a lot of cats to hunt down the rats.
Call a lot of cats to hunt down the rats. Ladies and gentlemen, one of my, amazing pop singers, musicians that I've listened to or heard, while growing up. It's his death anniversary, and the world is actually paying a rich tribute to his contribution towards music, where today happens to be the 16th death anniversary of the king of pop, Michael Jackson, who attained such heights of popularity not seen by most. Michael Jackson started as a lead singer in the band Jackson 5, which comprised his older brother. The band gave hits like ABC and I Want Back. Michael Jackson then transitioned to solo singing and recorded albums that sold in millions. One of his earliest albums was Thriller, released in the early 80s, which had hits like Beat It, Billie Jean and Thriller. This was when he unveiled his signature dance move, the moonwalk. He was indeed trying to make a comeback, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, he passed away, and the world couldn't get more of Michael Jackson.
And speaking more about what is happening in Pakistan, so finally, after 23 years, NADRA has finally made amendments for Pakistani citizens related to the National Identity Card. And to speak more about this, we have Syed Sabahat Ali, who is the spokesperson for NADRA and the Director of Public Engagement. Assalamu alaikum, sir. How are you feeling today?
So thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here. First things first, I do know about the amendments which has taken place, but I would want you to please give it away to our audiences and then we'll build up on that.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So to begin with, as we have been told, these changes have taken place after almost 23 years. NADRA was created in March 2000, and after creation, it took us 2 years to come up with the first NIC rules, which were in place for 23 straight years. We learned a lot during the process. We found out a lot of loopholes in the system. We found margins for improvements, and we have improved the overall rules. The lead was by the Minister of Interior and Narcotics Control, Mr. Monsoon. Through his guidance, we came up with this changes in our rules, which are going to have very good effect, inshallah, on the overall ecosystem of registration in Pakistan.
Really wonderful. And the changes are as follows: family registration certificate, child registration certificate, improved Teslin card. I don't know what that is. Time to see empowered woman identity. I would want to speak about empowered woman identity. Now, women can actually choose whether they want their husband's or father's name on their national identity card. Why so?
So to begin with, that's one of the changes that we have made. So a married woman can opt for having the name of her husband, or she can continue with the name of her father, and she will not require to have any further changes if she applies for a passport. Now, previously, if she had the name of her father on her CNIC, then she would have to go. By the time she wants to apply for a new passport, she will have to change that.
Exactly, sir. It's a great thing, but unfortunately there will be repercussions to that. We do know how police actually behaves with a couple actually going out on a road in a car, or probably even if you check in into a hotel, and there will be a lot of questions asked by women if in case they choose to keep their father's name, doubting them at that point of time whether you're married or not. How do you think NADRA is going to cater to these problems?
We have come up with a wonderful mechanism.
Okay.
We now have a dematerialized card that is inside your phone, so you can just configure it and have a copy of your CNIC in your phone, even if you're not getting your CNIC. Down the road, we have asked other government departments to have the facility available at their premises as well, so they'll be able to scan through your dematerialized card and would come to know who you are and what your marital status is and stuff like that.
A very well step taken to empower women. And to talk more about this, I want to ask about the child registration process that has been updated by the biometric stages that the child has to go through at different age groups. So please talk about how this could benefit the government and the parents.
To begin with, there was no pictured identity available for the citizens who are under 18 years of age. So by the time you come to apply for your first CNIC, that was the first time when you were having a picture taken by the government in many cases, if not all, because some children were applying for Teslin and passports earlier, but a majority would not. That created a loophole into the system, and that created many problems for the citizens as well. We also came to know that this is also contributing to child smuggling, as many bad people are taking advantage of this loophole. So now we have plugged this gap. What we have done is that a child who gets elder than 3 years of age would be pictured in our premises.
Okay.
Or if you are applying through app, you'll have to take his or her picture. By the time he or she reaches the age of 10, we'll take the biometrics. The facial is already there. And so by the time the child reaches 18, his or her identity is already there.
So they're probably or will be always in the data, so nobody's going anywhere now. I think that's great. I do remember how when I was applying for my German visa, they asked me for a family registration certificate, FARC, I don't know, FRC, yes. And I went over there and I figured it out that only one of my daughters is registered with NADRA, but the two of them is not, so I had to kind of do the entire paperwork. So is it a legal document now that we all need to have FRC?
As you said yourself, we started this document because many embassies were asking for it.
Yep.
So initially it was not a part of what we thought to be our core business. But then when we started issuing it, it was not a legal document. Okay. What that means is that if the information that you have provided on your FRC are not correct, there are no legal repercussions. But now the system has changed. Now when you will go, they will first show you what your family composition looks like. Okay. And if you think that it is the right family composition, you will have to sign it off.
All right.
That is like giving a written declaration to the government of Pakistan that that is the right composition. So if you have deprived any of your family members from being a part of your family, because certainly.
And that's what I wanted to ask. Now imagine, I still remember, I want to say it in Urdu because it will make more sense, and that is that one of my friend, कनाडा की उसको नेशनैलिटी ऐसे मिली है कि उसकी फुप्पो जो है वो कागजात जमा कराई थी अपने बच्चों के, तो उसके कागज भी उन्होंने साथ जमा करा दी. I'm really sorry, I'll translate it for my English speaking audiences as well. How will you make sure that for anybody who's coming here, ये भी मेरा बच्चा है, ये भी मेरा बच्चा है, ये भी मेरा बच्चा है, how will you check whether they're telling the right thing or not?
So as I said earlier, for if you go through the documents of the changes that we have made, now you have to have a CRC, a child registration certificate that is pictured, and the process starts at the age of 3.
Okay.
So now when this system goes down the road, she'll be asked if she had made a CRC of that child in her name.
Okay.
As her
Still,
one of
I do see a loophole. I've seen the document, but imagine somebody's baby is born, we come in, we're like, hey, you know what, Allah ने मुझे बच्चा दे दिया, alhamdulillah. तो आप CRC बना देंगे. आप कैसे back check करेंगे?
So, one step behind this is that the registration of Union Council is mandatory. Besides, in this case, if the person now dies having another baby in the family, the person that had died, the inheritance would come, her or his inheritance would come to this child as well, for which we also have established a process. You can take the person into your gamma family, which means an adopted child. So the system is being
I think
made.
that's wonderful. Just very quickly, one last thing which I wanted to ask, and that was that, with our smart cards, national identity smart cards, it was said initially that our, may be license, may be our debit cards and, bank things, everything will be in one smart card. Do you think that we're moving in the same direction?
We are moving in a direction much brighter and much broader than that. Wait until 14th of August. Prime Minister of Pakistan is going to make a very big announcement, and after that, technologically, our ID card would be at par with top 5-6 nations in the world.
Inshallah.
So stay tuned
that,
until
that our passport comes to that level as well. But thank you so much, Abbas, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. One last question from you. So after you get married, Eesha, would you want your father's name on the ID card or your husband's name?
I think that is a question I'll ask myself after I get married.
All right, inshallah. But it's already in the talks, right? Congratulations for everybody who's out there. Ladies and gentlemen, NADRA has done a phenomenal job. NADRA has been doing a phenomenal job ever since as well, with all the centers, 24/7 service, round the clock. You go in there. You really do not have to call anybody now. Just walk in, and ladies and gentlemen, your work will be done. For everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan is on a very progressive track, alhamdulillah. And looking at things, it looks like that Pakistan is on a very promising future, and we certainly would want to see. And alhamdulillah, we're not too late for that, and we're not too early for that. We're just on time. Look after yourselves. Remember us all in your prayers. Until next time, 1, 2, 3. Good morning. Have a great day.